hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our next Minority and Mental Health series, all presented by Sheppard Pratt. I am one of your hosts for the evening. My name is Ryan the Lion. You can catch me weekdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. inside the Lions Den on Magic 95.9. I am here with my co-host for the evening.
Yes, Pork Chop, representing the Quicksilver Morning Show every morning, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 on 92Q.
That's right. And our mental health series tonight, our minority and mental health series, is all about gambling addiction. And we have some amazing special guests, amazing panelists here to help us out to navigate all this stuff tonight. Please welcome AJ Johnson, addictions counselor and case manager at Sheppard Pratt's Addiction Treatment Program. Hello, AJ. We also have Heather Eshelman, prevention manager at Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. How you doing, Heather?
I'm great. Thanks for having me tonight.
Great to have you as well. Also joining us this evening is Jim Nowlin, who is the peer recovery support specialist, also from the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling. Welcome, everyone. Glad you all could be here tonight. Thank you so much for coming. We have the issue of gambling addiction tonight. So let's start talking about what that is. What's up, Chop?
Are you a gambler? Because I'm a gambler.
I am a gambler, man, but I am not a hardcore gambler. I'm like a social gambler. Like every now and then I see a good opportunity, I try to take advantage. But I'm not risking it all.
Yeah, I'm not really a horseshoe guy or live. I'm more of a small time gambler. I'll go to Delaware Park, because it's cheaper, first of all.
Right.
I'm one of them guys, man. So I got a question for anybody on the panel or everybody. Why do people gamble?
That's a good question. Great place to start.
Yeah.
I'll take that if that's okay.
All right, go ahead.
I think a lot of people look at it as exciting and enticing. A lot of people, they watch these shows. Think shows glamorize it. They have the fantasy of hitting the big one, and in their mind, buying houses, cars, taking care of their moms, just never having to work again in their life. The reality of it is when we start out young, we gamble on something. We're competitive. We always want to place a little bet among our friends or this or that and make it a little more interesting. And as we grow up, play for a little bit more money, but it starts out as fun and entertaining. And that's how it's supposed to be. So a lot of people gamble for the right reasons, which keep it fun and entertaining and safe and don't bet more than you can afford to lose. Right. So that part of it is a good thing. Yeah. So at the Maryland Center of Excellence, we try to let people know that we're not for or against gambling, because gambling is entertaining. It is 95% of people in Maryland gamble, which is not a negative thing. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, 5% of the people that gamble can't set boundaries. They can't stop. They go into, whether it's a casino or when the Mega Million gets up to whatever dollar figure, they buy hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of tickets, more than they can really afford. They let other things go by the wayside, put off paying this bill, minimum on credit cards, have credit cards maxed out, or whatever the case is. And their focus is winning all that money. And you or some people that do gamble might go into a casino and like roulette or craps and play and have fun with $300. And when you lose it, it was a good evening. You had a good time. If you win some money, you put it in your pocket. You had a good time and you won some money. The problem is those of us that go into that casino, after we go through our $300, we hit the money machine. We go back to win our money back, and now we start chasing, and it's a different world when you can't stop. So again, to answer your question, people gamble for the excitement, for the thrill. And a lot of people, unfortunately, and especially with sports gambling, they find a game more interesting if they got a little action on it. Some people don't really appreciate watching basketball or football or any major sport if they don't have a little action on it. And everybody knows these days, used to be in the day, you'd bet on a sports game and you'd be betting on who wins or who loses. And, you might have a point spread. But now you got action throughout the game. So
players.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can bet if it's baseball, you can bet on how many pitches are going to take the strike such and such out, or how many people are going to steal bases. Basketball, who's going to make the first basket, or how many rebounds such and such going to. I mean, they got action going out throughout the game for those of us that need that action.
I feel like the Super Bowl is one of the biggest ones because they bet on the coin flip.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Session, first down, everything in the Super Bowl or in that football game you can bet on.
Absolutely.
But I know from our process addiction standpoint, gambling goes back even further. We gamble because we're taught to. And I know in my neighborhood, being adult enough to play grandma's numbers came the responsibility, the privilege. Automatically, we are taught to please because we had to get it right. We learned a new language, and it just became something we did. Every backyard, people played poker, spades. Putting money down showed that not only were you competitive, but you were a member of the family. You learned how to talk smack.
And that's what I was going to say. As far as talking smack, there's nothing like talking smack with somebody else's money in your pocket. And it didn't have to be a lot. When when I was younger, it wasn't a lot of money, but to be able to talk smack and you got their money, it was a difference.
Yeah, those bragging rights. Yeah, they made a difference.
Sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Now, we talked a lot about some of the reasons why people gamble, and I think you brought up a very good point because I look at it also like just youth sports. You do it for fun. It's just a part of your culture. But then you go through the ranks, and then you're in college, and it's a lot more competitive now. Then you go to the pros. It's a whole different ball game. Like you really grow up with this thing just being a part of you, but it changes as you grow. And some people are able to handle the spotlight. And as you can see, we see so many stories about athletes. Some of them are really not able to protect themselves or their families from some of the I guess wealth and being able to have that kind of money. But what are some of these symptoms of gambling addiction? Like we see some of these folks now. We talked about that 5%. What are some characteristics we could look to in some of these people to maybe identify some friends, family that may be going a little bit too far?
I know from our assessment point, we look at having that need to gamble with more and more money, becoming restless and irritable when you're losing or you're dropping low, or when somebody is interrupting your game. Being preoccupied with gambling. I have some friends who drive from Pennsylvania to Maryland just whenever the lottery is big. And they make a big production out of it. Pack a lunch. It's like, you're only doing. When you start rearranging your budget, as Mr. Nowlin said, not paying the gas and electric bill or putting a part on the credit card so that you can have a larger budget. And then your language changes. Things become a sure thing. It's only. I can make it. My luck is going to change. We start to pick up symbols and emblems. Everybody had at one point a lucky rabbit's foot, or your lucky bracelet, your lucky pin. In some casinos, they have a lucky chair.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one of the big tells these days with the sports gambling, because you have apps now. So you can gamble on your phone 24/7. You can gamble on anything across the country, across the world. So one of the big tells these days are somebody that's secluded. They might be in a family dinner, but they're on their phone. They're checking the lines, they're checking the points. They're making bets between this or that or whatever the case is, and they're not really even engaged. And as AJ said, their attitude or demeanor can change depending on what's going on the screen. But you get people that will get up in the middle of the night and bet on games on the other side of the world that they really don't even understand how it's played, but there's action. So The seclusion these days, especially with the sports betting, people get involved in their electronics, and they might be in the room with you, but they're not there. And
I just moved back to Baltimore from Vegas, and of course they don't have lottery there. But 15 to 20 minutes outside of Vegas, where Arizona is, when Mega Millions or Powerball got that big, they would rush to this one store, and it would be a line. Like, I never seen nothing like that for lottery.
Right.
It's crazy.
And the thing about that, though, and I'll back out, but on the lottery, it gets up to all that money, and everybody's got that dream. You might hit that ticket or whatever the case is, which is fine. If you can afford to spend and the tickets are $2 and you buy $5, if you can afford to lose $10, it's a dream. It's a dream when the number comes out. The problem with the lottery is the people that go in there and buy 100 tickets and they don't have money for rent. Buy 200 tickets, they don't have money to put food on the table for their kids. And that's the problem, and that's what people do when they have this disease.
I got a question, because you hear a term, and I don't know if you can kind of attach it to this, but you hear of people like functioning alcoholics. Is there something like a functioning gambling addict, somebody that kind of can get by and make people think they're okay, but they're really, like going through it?
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between alcohol and gambling because they're both legal. So yes, I mean, even like Jim will tell you, but we can work with people to just kind of do harm reduction or control the behavior a little better if they don't want to stop altogether. But then they may find that they need to stop it altogether, just like with an alcoholic. They're not supposed to be drinking any alcohol. Because it could trigger them to kind of go back to the, being out of control. So, but yeah, there's lots of parallels between alcohol and gambling. And I work a lot with the youth. So we definitely see how the advertising impacts the youth. Like they're seeing the advertising and they want to be like the adults and be on all these apps. And we've done a lot of high school presentations, and of course, kids that do alcohol or drink alcohol are more likely to gamble too, because it kind of goes hand in hand with the risky behaviors, and same with adults too. But the kids, especially because their brains are still growing, they're more vulnerable to the addiction.
I guess that's why casinos always give you that liquor, huh? Casino always give you that drink, boy. Make sure get comfortable. Bad.
But now with our telephones, gambling doesn't look like the casino anymore. We play Monopoly. We start spending more money because the game keeps giving us stuff.
Leave Monopoly Go out of this.
But it's not only Monopoly Go. It's every game you play on the phone. As you get close, I just need a few more plays.
Yeah.
Spend $2.99, $9.99, $5.99. Before you know it, you're setting up your, I know for me, Amazon Pay, Google Pay. So all you gotta do is hit a button.
Yeah. Okay.
So we play spades on the phone. There was a commercial, Latin bingo. They started to gear it toward cultures. So our favorite celebrity, who doesn't want to have that hope of winning? And they had the lottery. Here's something. Hippodrome has a lottery for cheap tickets. We all put our name on it because we all want to see the latest plays.
Especially when football go around, even your own job, pull out the sheet and be like, anybody want to join the
lottery pool?
So you can make sure you watching the game. And
sure.
So for someone who's a gambling addict, man, today's society has got to be really, really difficult for them to navigate. It's everywhere.
It is everywhere. And I'm in recovery for gambling myself. And you mentioned, and I'll tie this in, you mentioned as far as a functioning gambler, basically. When I gambled as a youth, and Heather mentioned the parallels between gambling and alcohol. As we drink, our body builds up a tolerance for alcohol. So we start drinking more to get that same buzz and to get that same feeling, to a point where we're drinking cases of beer or hard liquor or whatever the case is. But that's what our body does. It builds up a tolerance. A lot of people don't realize gambling is the same way. I started out gambling at a smaller amount, and pretty soon the excitement for the win wasn't as big. Blackjack is what buried me. Blackjack is what got me in trouble. And I'll tell a little bit about my story if we have time. But I started out playing blackjack for $5 or $10 on a button. And, you know, if you have $10 on a button in blackjack, you win $15. And pretty soon that wasn't exciting enough. And gambling is about the action, the excitement, the dopamine, and it hits in your brain, just like drugs and alcohol. So I had to increase my bets. And then I had to increase my bets. And then I had to increase my bets. And it got to a point where I was gambling for more money than I was making, obviously. I was in outside of a league and had no idea or realize how much trouble I was getting in, because we have that false sense that we can win. We've won in the past. So if we lose, you know what? We can hit and we can get it back. It is no big deal. And that's when we start putting our bills aside and we start isolating ourselves and we start chasing our losses. And we don't even realize we're in trouble. So I functioned. I had a great job. I hid my gambling from anybody that might think I had a problem, because I knew I didn't have a problem. So I didn't want to hear it. So when I gambled, I was involved to a point where nothing else mattered. I tuned everything else out. And as a gambler, that's what you do. Once you cross that line and it becomes a problem, you focus on that, and that's what you do.
Man, you got me thinking about my game. Like, I play poker because it's relaxing to me.
Sure.
Right.
Like we said off air, I give myself an allowance.
Correct.
After that's gone, I go home.
Right.
Because if you don't, that ATM machine is right there, and they make sure they put it somewhere where you can see it. With big.
But you're right. And they make it so easy. And unfortunately, like I said, most people that have a problem gambling will win at one time or another. Some of us start out winning early, and we think, why do I need to work? This is easy money. Whether sports betting and you pay attention to who's injured, who's out, this or that, or whatever the case is. Casino, I always thought that I was a good blackjack player. I could take the house, no problem. But when it got to the point where I was playing for the action, it didn't matter how much I won. And there were times where I won a lot of money, but I would keep playing because it was the action. And why not win more money? And anybody that knows anything about gambling, you keep playing, the house is going to win.
Right.
Every time. Every time. But
funny you bring that up too, because just recently we heard about Bruno Mars, and I guess, you know, it doesn't matter how much money you have. The more money you have, the more money you gamble. If you had that problem,
They
$50 million.
That was false.
It was false.
Yeah, it was false.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know, because I know when that came out, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, the MGM did come out and say it was false, but really, whether it's true or false, a lot of us looking for excitement in our life, realistically. Right. And when you make all that money, it's harder to find that something that excites you like that. And gambling, you know, you might not want to destroy your body as far as like athletes or celebrities with drugs and alcohol, because that's obvious of what that can do to your body. Right. But what's the harm in gambling? You know, everybody gambles, and it's exciting if you gamble and you win some money. You get that same dopamine hit as the alcohol and the drugs. And unfortunately, the more money you have, the more you can gamble for, to where it becomes unrealistic. And those of us that are laymen and are making realistic salaries, you know, but it's all relative. I mean, there are people that can lose, unfortunately, go to the lottery machine and lose $20, and it's devastating to them because of the situation they're in. They don't have it. and they have a problem.
All right, so you bring up a good point as well. Really quick too, because this can you guys can help me answer this, because you look at minorities and their position in a lot of communities across this country, across the world, underserved, still looking for opportunity, probably a lot more susceptible to gambling, just trying to get ahead. Do you find that communities of color are more susceptible or affected more with gambling?
Our prevalence study, so we do a prevalence study every other year at the University of Maryland, and it definitely has showed over the years that the African American population are more likely to be disordered gamblers. So, and they're also less likely to seek help when they need the help. So, yes, we are finding that. And we know that casinos and other, the gambling industry target their best customers. So, say, there's a community that, is predominantly African American, and they're the ones that are the best customers coming into the casino, then they're going to try to market that group more because they're making more money from them. So we see that with the Asian population too, a lot with our casinos. They'll sponsor events for them, and then they'll send them all kind of marketing materials, and then they come in the casinos. So yes, I mean, we definitely see targeted marketing to specific minority populations in Maryland, and they see it as the best customers, so they're targeting them. But our suggestion to them is, well, then you need to target the resources for help just as much in the same population, but we don't always see that.
Plus, it's also targeted at different age groups. How many of us had our elderly parents playing bingo, 5 and 6 cards at a time, every weekend, every Saturday? It's like, come on. Even in our Disney shows, there's something called Percy Jackson. Each version, kids are on that quest. They go into a kid-friendly casino, but they lose track of time because it gets dark. They're offered food. They forget all about their quest. Most casinos have no natural lighting.
Well, they don't have windows for that reason.
For that reason,
They don't have
Right,
clocks. They don't have clocks on the wall for that reason.
Right. And then somebody offers you drinks, so you get that high roller feeling.
Well, you're talking about the targeting. Before the casinos came to Maryland, Atlantic City would send buses to senior citizen centers and give the senior citizens a roll of quarters. They pay for the trip, give them a roll of quarters for the time there, and let them gamble. And the percentage of senior citizens that got hooked, because senior citizens are looking for something to do, basically. And they're going on these bus trips with their friends or their buddies, as far as from the center. And some of them wound up losing their retirement, mortgage, and lost their houses. I had a gentleman that wound up, he was a school teacher, 35 years. He lost his pension. He lost his house, had to move in with his son, who had to support him. And that was basically started out as something to do until he got hooked on it and didn't even realize how much he's going through. And absolutely, the casinos welcomed him. Just have fun. Have fun. And that's the thing. It's fun until it's not.
Right. And I'm sure you guys in the fields that you work in have heard horror stories. And I'm sure addiction, when it gets really bad, we know it not only affects the person, but also family members as well and loved ones. So if someone is dealing with someone like that in their family, what can we kind of tell them to do, how to approach them, how to handle it? What are some tips?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in recovery for gambling myself. The whole time I gambled, I never thought I had a problem. Started out, what am I hurting? I have a good job. In my mind, I was making good money, paying my bills. So it didn't matter if I lost because I'm paying my bills and I can always win it back. Anybody that would have thought or accused me or suggested that I might have a problem, I would have tuned them out. These days, there's so much help. When the casinos came to Maryland, the one thing Maryland did right, and I'm not going to say it's the only thing, but one of the things they did right is they made the casinos chip in money to a problem gambling fund. They knew when the 6 casinos came to Maryland, there were going to be some problem gamblers. And this problem gambling fund helps us offer any Maryland resident free treatment, free inpatient, free legal advice, free therapy, all kinds of free treatment that they can get. And the only thing I would suggest, if somebody had a concern of a friend or relative, because you're absolutely right, as a problem gambler, we affect 7 to 10 other people, whether it's our immediate family, friends, coworkers, employees, employers, or whomever. So we drag a lot of people down with us. So if you know somebody that you might be a little concerned at, the best advice I would give them is to have them call that hotline, 1-800-GAMBLER, because that would put them in touch with a peer like myself. We have 6 peers throughout Maryland working, and we're all in recovery for gambling. So we can always meet the person where they're at. We can let them know our experience, what we've been through, and let them know about the help that's available. And just like any addiction out there, if the person doesn't want help, there's not a lot you can do for them. But I always tell people, we can try this, and the reality of it is gambling is going to always be there. You can always go back to gambling. If we can try this and you like your life better because you're not living paycheck to paycheck or had people living on friends' couches or whatever the case is, if you can try this and it's working better for you, let's see if we can make it work.
What if somebody don't want to meet up with, one of you guys? Is it a way they could do it mobily, FaceTime?
Absolutely.
Yes. Sheppard Pratt offers, we look at all addictions as a process. We offer virtual, in-person. But if you're a family member or a friend, come from a place of gentleness and love. Nobody wants that confrontation, finger pointing, ultimatums. Come from a place of understanding. We all Google, we all go to WebMD, but come from reality. We always give the worst case scenario. Not everybody's going to go to jail. Not everybody's going to lose their house. Talk about the time that you missed because they're not there with you. Talk about what you could have been doing if they were with you. Every argument between any relationship starts with, well, you were supposed to be. Can't supposed to be. Can we? Offer to go with that person because you're being affected just as much as the person gambling. So it's not only his feelings and he needs to get help. So do I, because I watched the train wreck happen. I watched him leave out every day. I'm going to the casino. Some days I went with them. So I can't just finger point. You've got to not share it, but be willing to accept your role in it.
And the beauty about the Problem Gambling Fund, and I mentioned it, it's free therapy and all kinds of free things. It's not only for the gambler, but for the significant other, the spouse, or anybody can get help from this Problem Gambling Fund because it doesn't just affect the gambler.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which is great because, that therapy is absolutely important. That help is absolutely important. And for anyone joining us right now, welcome to our Minority and Mental Health series presented by Sheppard Pratt. We are addressing and talking about gambling addiction. Our guests tonight, AJ, Heather, Jim, thank you guys so much again for being here. If anyone that's joining us right now has a question, please feel free. Join it, drop it in the chat, and so we can get those questions answered. Now, guys, we talked about family and support, right? Now, what if someone is seeking help, right? They've gone through maybe a program. Now they're home, right? Now they're home and they're trying to deal with it. As a partner, a loved one, a friend, we talked about the ease of gambling. We talked about the culture of gambling, how just easy it is to be around and a part of us. How do you help that person to navigate? It's got to be tough to try and not say certain things or maybe ignite certain triggers for that person. How do you go about helping someone so they don't relapse?
Well, that's a great question because in early recovery, I was very, I don't want to say sensitive, but sensitive. I was very aware when my wife had concerns or once my life blew up. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself real quick. After high school, I decided to join the police department. All right. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make a difference. So I joined the police department, became a police officer, had a good job, making good money for what I was doing, and working shift work. I was able to go to Atlantic City whenever I wanted, and it was no big deal because I'm living on my own, I'm paying my bills, and life is good. And over a period of time, as I mentioned, I had to start playing for a little bit more money, a little bit more money, and a little bit more money. And it got to the point where I was betting a lot more than I could really afford to lose. But if I would lose, I felt like I could win it back. When I started dating my wife, she knew I went to Atlantic City. She knew I gambled, but she didn't have any idea how often I went and how much I was gambling for. So when she confronted me and she asked me some questions, I still didn't think I had a gambling problem, but she asked me some questions about it. And she basically said, you got a gambling problem. And until you get help for this problem, this relationship isn't going anywhere. So what I decided I had to do was just not tell her when I'm gambling because she thinks I have a problem. And I knew I didn't have a problem. So I just started lying and manipulating and going around her back. And I'd be out there gambling when she would think I was at work or elsewhere. And it got to the point where eventually I wound up losing a considerable amount of money. And I wound up going home. We had our joint accounts and we had our separate accounts. And I hit my account and I got enough money on the credit card advances and what I needed to go win my money back because I knew I was good in blackjack. So I went back to Atlantic City and I got wiped out again. So now I'm concerned because you know what? She already thinks I've got a problem. So now I go back and I hit the joint accounts. I hit the joint credit cards and I wipe everything out. And I go back to Atlantic City. And you know what? They picked up right where they left off and they wiped me out. So now here's the thing about gambling. I still don't think I have a gambling problem. I think that I'm a little light on money. I don't have enough money to get my money back. Right. So in my mind, all I need is to be spotted X amount of money to go back to this casino to get my money back. That's the addiction. There's nobody I could ask to get the amount of money I needed. So I decided to commit a crime. I committed a crime. I had to figure out something to do that wouldn't put anybody else's life in danger but my own because I consider myself a decent person. So I put a plan into play and I committed a crime. And it didn't work out the way I expected it to. So I wound up, for lack of a better word, not succeeding and going home. Well, my wife knew something was wrong. And now my back's against the wall. Pretty soon the credit card bills are going to roll in with these cash advances. She's going to realize there's no money in accounts. So I told her that I've been going to Atlantic City. I've been gambling. And very calmly, she said, what else? And I said, well, I went back and I lost even more. And again, very calmly, she said, what else? And I said, well, I thought about committing a crime. And I put it that way because I didn't want to tell her what I did. I didn't want her to have the onus, whether she's going to turn me in or maybe it was shame, embarrassment, guilt. I don't know, but that's how I put it. Well, years, and I don't know whether it was years or months or what prior to that, she had gotten information from Taylor Manor Hospital. And back in the 70s and 80s, Taylor Manor Hospital was an inpatient treatment facility for alcoholism, drug addiction, and compulsive gambling. So we called Taylor Manor Hospital. Like I said, I was a police officer. I had great insurance. And they said, bring him in here on Monday, and we'll admit him to an inpatient, 30-day inpatient treatment program. So I went in on Monday, still didn't think I had a gambling problem, but I had to go along with the program because my back was against the wall. So I go in. I shared with a buddy of mine that I worked with on the police department where I was and what was going on. And his response, and we were tight. He said, get help for yourself, Jim. That's great. Get help for yourself. I'll take care of leave at work. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of that. And then I told him about the robbery attempt. And being a good friend, he said, don't worry about it. Did they get any fingerprints? Did they get any photographs? Did they get any physical evidence? No. And so he said, don't worry about it. Just take care of yourself. So I felt comfortable with that. Well, that was Monday. Well, that Thursday, Maryland State Police came to Taylor Manor Hospital and they arrested me for attempted robbery. They transported me back, and I basically was processed by a lot of detectives that I was friends with, because by this time I'd been on the department for about 20 years. Now, the thing about gambling that people don't realize, a lot of people think gambling, why don't you just stop? How can you lose your car, your house? How can you lose your family and not even think about your kids? You know, you're just a degenerate. They don't realize it because they don't see you put anything in your body. You're not taking any alcohol. You're not taking drugs. You're not ingesting anything. And they don't realize the power of that dopamine and what's going on in our mind.
Well, addiction is an addiction anyway.
That's exactly right. And what they don't realize, and a lot of people don't know, that gambling is the number one addiction for suicide. 50% of problem gamblers at one time or another, 50% have that thought go through their mind. 15% of them either attempt it or succeed in it. So and I believe that rate of suicide is so high because we mentioned how we are not only affecting ourselves, but we're affecting our family and our friends.
Did you ever think about it?
I had a plan in place. At that time, when I was arrested, my choice in my life, my job was over that I loved. There's no way I'm going to be a police officer now. I had let my family down. I let my friends down. I was ready to go. When they did the search warrant at my house, they hadn't gotten all my guns, so I knew how I was going to do it. I had a plan. The only thing I didn't expect when I was released pending my court date was for my wife and my father and my sister-in-law to be there waiting for me. And they talked me back into going to Taylor Manor Hospital. And to say I was a mess is an understatement. So I went back to Taylor Manor Hospital. They put me on suicide watch, which was interesting. And 3 days or 4 days later, one of the counselors came in and asked if it was my birthday or something. And I said, no. And they proceeded to give me cards and some letters and balloons. And I started reading these cards and I realized a few things. I realized there's a major difference between friends and acquaintances. I realized that my family still loved me. I'd done some stupid things and where I was. And I started realizing, you know what, I'm not a bad person. And for the first time in my life, it dawned on me that I have a disease. I have a gambling problem. And I take ownership for everything I did. I did what I did, but I have a problem. So I was able to start my recovery then. So I realized while I was in Sheppard Pratt, I was roomed with a gentleman named Jerry, and he was in there for cocaine, crack addiction. And I realized that Jerry and I were no different. Jerry did some crazy stuff for his addiction, and I did some crazy stuff for mine. An addict is an addict is an addict. And I will always say that if you're an addict, you can pretty much convince yourself of anything. Because where I was at that time, again, I was good at what I did. I loved being a cop. But I convinced myself that I had to commit this crime to take care of this because people think I've got a gambling problem. And it made sense to me. And that's the scary part. And this is the part that you'll find interesting is after I was released from Taylor Manor Hospital and I'm going to GA meetings, and that became a big part of my life. And to this day, I still go to the Gamblers Anonymous meetings for support because you know what? I'm going to be a gambler until I die. And I know that. And I know for me, one bet is just like an alcoholic taking one drink. And I know for me, if I were to go gamble now, and it's been 34 years since I've gambled, If I were to go gamble now, I'm financially, I'm in a better place and this and that and everything else. But if I were to gamble and I were to win, I would be off to the races. If I were to gamble and I were to lose, I'd be off to the races. But in early recovery, I would sit in the GA meeting and I would think one good trip to Atlantic City and I can get out of all of this mess. And that's how powerful this is. We can convince ourselves of this craziness. But wow. It's a disease that people do not understand how much trouble somebody can get in.
Man, hey, Jim, we definitely thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely great story, man. I mean, that's inspiring and so informative. We've learned so much right there. And for me, I know you mentioned one thing because you said, like, really, once a gambler, kind of like always a gambler, right?
Yes.
So for like Heather and AJ and you, Jim, you guys have worked with many people that I'm sure have told you their story. Do you see a lot of people continuing to come back to programs, the same person, because they're just continuing to I guess, trying to overcome this?
Yeah. One of the reasons that I've been in Gamblers Anonymous for so many years is because being there, you can see the people that come regularly have a better chance of getting a handle on this disease. If you are a problem gambler and you don't do anything except stop gambling, your money's going to get better because you're not losing it all at the casino or in lottery or scratch offs or bingo or whatever. And if you don't do anything except stop gambling, your money's going to get better and you're going to think, you know what? I can do a little bit better this time. I can do a little bit differently this time. I'll just leave my credit cards at home. I'll just do this. And you'll start convincing yourself it wasn't that bad. Because somebody mentioned ego. As a casino gambler, the casinos stroke your ego. They make you feel like a big shot. You play for enough money at a casino, they'll fly you in from wherever you live. Mm-hmm. I used to get comped rooms, comped meals. They will give you free play if you play for enough money. So they treat you like a king. And who doesn't want to be treated like a king? As long as you're playing their games. So the problem is you stop gambling and you still have these memories of the highs from when you were gambling. That's still in your blood and that's still in the back of your mind. And that convinces you, you know what? It's going to be different this time. So that's why people get away from Gamblers Anonymous and they wind up going back out. And it's usually twice as bad when they go back out. And some of them do come back to meetings. And I don't know what happens to some people, but it is a disease that is hard. And I've had people tell me it's harder to lick than drugs or alcohol.
Because there's a level of acceptance to it.
Absolutely.
You don't see it when you're going back to that Monopoly Go. We don't see it. Mm-hmm. And it sneaks up on us. Throughout our lifetime, we have the hope of a better life. Right now, Powerball, $1 billion. Everybody has had the conversation of what can I do with the $1 billion?
Absolutely.
You have to go philanthropic, pay off the student loans, buy mom a house, set up everything. Who's going to turn that down? We are human. And a lot of times people relapse because they only address the substance.
Absolutely.
If I don't pick up, it won't get in me. But what were the rest of the problems? Like Mr. Nowlin said, the dopamine. What else am I doing to replace it? Am I eating right? Am I exercising? That social aspect that gambling has. You make friends at the table. Most people don't go to the casino by themselves. There's always someone. Those bus trips, all your girlfriends, and the restaurants. Your favorite chef has a restaurant. And I'm only going to Arundel Mills to go to Bobby Flay's. But while I'm there, or now they have concerts, I'm only going to see Patti LaBelle. But while I'm there, I'll just try it once.
Sure.
Bright lights, sounds, and you see one person win. Oh, that could be me.
That could be me. Very, very alluring. Very alluring.
So what about kids though? In your treatment programs, like how young are some of the people that you've worked with? I know we talked about people having, jobs and income to kind of make it work. Have you seen some really young folks deal with gambling addiction?
So I do prevention. So I work a lot with kids, but we're mostly trying to catch them before they ever start or for it to become a problem. Because even if you talk to kids, it's almost impossible to eliminate any gambling from even our kids' lives. So if a kid goes into Chuck E. Cheese's and they play the claw machine, that actually meets the definition of gambling because they're putting money into a game with an uncertain outcome. So we try to educate the kids to try to eliminate as much gambling activity from their lives. And it's in the video games too. There's something called loot boxes that they can purchase within video games, which is a gambling feature. So they're putting money or virtual money in for a surprise box, and they're not sure what is in that box. So it could level them up. It could, give them a better character or better armor or weapons, or it could be nothing in that box. So there's a lot of gambling that we're training our kids to do at a young age. But I tell them, please just, try to know there's risk and try to avoid it. But back to your question, I mean, we've received calls, and with the mobile sports betting, we're getting calls from younger and younger people. I mean, we had a 15-year-old that called in. He was actually playing poker with his friends every Sunday night. And he had a part-time job, so he wasn't taking money from his parents. But he was, it was getting out of control. I mean, he was in maybe debt a couple $1,000s. Wow. So he said that he called us and then he said he could control it. So I'm not aware that he called back. But sometimes even people, if they're aware that it's starting to get out of control, then they can themselves, kind of get them to go back. But we're getting more and more calls from parents, especially college age students that are using their financial aid or they're using their parents' credit cards to gamble, like at different campus events, or they have a bookie or just online. We work a lot with the HBCUs here in Maryland because we're trying to reach that population, and they're doing a great job of educating the students on campus through various activities. But Jim and I did one at Morgan State the other week, and we asked the students to raise their hand at how many of you are gambling. And a lot of the students on campus are underage, and I'd say like half of them raise their hand that they're gambling. So they're doing something that's illegal, and their brains are still growing. So it's definitely of concern. But yeah, we're starting to get calls from younger and younger ages.
And Heather mentioned.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. Just real quick. Heather mentioned like the loot boxes. I've had parents call because their kids are playing these video games and they're fun. It's something to entertain the kids. And they get these loot boxes. And I've had parents call where their child has run up $2,000 of charges on their credit card. And from these loot boxes, from playing these video games. And in my opinion, that's just a precursor, a way the kid is going to start his gambling career basically as he gets older.
That's what I was going to bring up too, Heather. When you brought up Roblox, I give my son, and I think it's too much, maybe 2 different $50 gift cards for Roblox.
Right.
And the other day, I won't say I caught him, but as soon as I gave him the card, he called his friends, was like, give me this amount of money and I'll give you, this.
Right.
And he gambling on
Right.
8 years old.
Yes.
Yep.
So I brought that up. I'm thinking, should I say something? Like, he 8. So I don't want to think that his gameplay and take away his childhood, or do I say something about that being a gambling problem?
But that also ties into knowing the value of money.
Yes.
Because as a problem gambler, I really didn't appreciate the value of the dollar. And at 8 years old, I doubt seriously if he does.
Because no money is changing hands now. Everything, credit card, phone, cash app.
Mm-hmm.
When we physically don't see it, all we're looking at is buttons. Well, Dad, I didn't give him any money. I just transferred some. So having that conversation with our 8-year-olds and even our 5-year-olds, the value of money. If you want, how much is a candy bar now? What kind of trade could you make? How do you want to earn it? And how do you want to keep it? Because remember when you got your very first paycheck and you saw FICA took something, Social Security took something, IRS took a whole lot? What were your first words?
Damn.
People.
Man,
Where did my money go?
where's my money? Yep.
Right. So having this basic conversation about where's my money. We had chores growing up. What did we have to do for those chores?
Work.
Money just wasn't given to us.
But that's the thing about my son. I'm not trying to toot my son's horn. Straight A's.
Okay.
And I feel like the Robux is a congratulations, thank you.
You're working hard. Absolutely.
You know, so he know he gonna get the card.
But what's the contingency plan if he doesn't get straight A's?
Ass whipping.
Right. But his expectation is I'm gonna get this. So,
Health.
Right.
right, but
I mean,
understanding what the contingency is.
Right.
And I would tell him, pork chop too, like buy. So, just like within the video games, there's items they can buy, like it's a virtual store.
Right.
So I would tell him to try to stick to what he can see and he knows he's going to get for his money versus buying like a mystery box, or sometimes, they call them packs in the
Right.
in FIFA games. They're called different things, but Roblox, I think they definitely are called loot boxes, but you want to like tell him to go with the stuff like he's buying that he's sure he's going to get. And then kids will try to swap on there. So, because my kids are on Roblox too, so
Yeah.
I kind of get you.
Listen, I understand what my son going through. I'm going through the same thing in Call of Duty. You get a battle pack. I need a certain gun. I want the thing, but you gotta buy it.
Right.
And they sucker me every time. And I be like, yo, if I get it, I feel like that's now video games are now the new gambling.
Oh,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
happening.
especially
Part of it.
Yeah, if they're rated M for mature or A for adult, they're going to have more violence, foul language, sexual content. So you definitely want to have that discussion with your children about what they're seeing in the video games, and they're going to have more gambling features within them generally as well. Although some of the video games, because they're unregulated, there's nobody that's regulating these games. So even like Mario Kart, which is rated E for everyone, has loot boxes in it. So it's kind of like parents have to beware and you can Google it. Google any video game to see what it's rated. Say, does it have loot boxes in it? And then you can kind of have that discussion with your child about, what is within that video game. But we're not going to be able to tell our kids they can't play video games, believe me. Because
Heather, Jim, and AJ, I don't think y'all understand that this conversation is for me. Hold up. Let me see. Can you see him? Can you see him?
I can see it. Yes.
Snoopy.
Yoshi, Toad, like that's me. I used to gamble on Mario Kart
oh wow,
so much that I got him tatted on my arm. Like I used to take kids' money over the internet.
wow.
We as a culture, we've always done that. Our
Yeah.
sports figures bet on ourselves. I ran track and field. My friends, AJ, you got to go out there and you have to do this because we cannot let Eastern win.
Right.
AJ, what did you say about Monopoly? Hold up. My son just texted me some dice.
Yeah, we're on Facebook.
Listen.
Hey, if you want to get 5,000, do this, do that. We're opening the door, but every commercial in the smallest of small print says, "Do this responsibly."
Mm-hmm.
Who teaches me how to responsibly
What's
play?
responsibly? Yep.
Thank you. Because my responsibility is different from Jim's responsibility, different from Heather's responsibility.
And that brings up a good point. Responsibility, right? Like some of these video game companies, casinos, how much responsibility do they hold? Like in casinos, like at some bars, if you drink too much, the bartender now has got to be like, okay, sir, that's too much. I got to cut you off. Are casinos or these games, are they responsible at all for like saying, okay, enough.
Well,
Now?
I think the difference is in a bar, if somebody's inebriated, it shows their actions, their slurring their words, or this or that or whatever. In a casino, it's a slippery slope, because if I go to a casino and I lose my paycheck, for the casino to tell me I've had enough, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
You've got my money. I want to win it back.
Right.
So you don't know somebody's financial situation. And a lot of us, and if you go and I think Pork Chop, you said you go to casinos on occasion, whatever, but you can look and you can see people's faces at a casino that are desperate. You can see people that are not having fun, but if the establishment can't call them out, because that's how, who are you to say that I can't afford this? Who are you to say, after you took my last 3 paychecks, now that I'm getting ready to lose my car, you're going to tell me you think I need to slow down? That's not going to work.
Is there Gamblers Anonymous inside the casino? Like, say somebody playing,
right,
and they know they have the problem right then and there.
You know, casinos are in business to make money.
Wow.
The casinos are in business to make money, and they make a lot of money. Now they have things set up to try to keep people aware. They're working with us, and they have signage up by their most machines and their cash windows about, hey, if you have a problem, scan this QR code. You can get help if you have this or that or whatever. But it's up to the individual to take that initiative. They can't approach the individual, but the Lottery Commission has some rules and regulations and things for the casino to abide by.
Yeah, we can't keep picking on the casinos.
No, we can't.
Yeah, horse racing, because now everybody wants to go to the excitement of the Preakness. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the last one for a few years. It's good for the neighborhood. I remember a friend of mine used to work at the Stadium Authority. Stadium Authority was set up to support schools. So it's my civic duty to gamble. I have to make sure my child has a good school, air conditioning, books. So they make it hard not to gamble, because you wouldn't do your city right if we did not bring sports betting in. If we didn't bring in the Ravens. You ever go down to a Ravens game? People were out freezing cold snow in the nosebleed seats.
Yeah.
Because money was on the game. So they make no responsibility to support. Because I got to support my team.
I don't know if this is a great question to ask about gambling and needing help for gambling addiction. Was the casinos good or bad for Maryland?
Well, the idea was they were going to help the school systems.
Mm-hmm.
The idea there was going to be some money going to some good places. And it's just like our liquor store is good or bad. I mean, people are going to drink whether you have a liquor store or not. They're going to find a way. The casinos, people are going to gamble. So why not let the state get their cut and hopefully put it towards some good use?
They do. They do use the money for good programming. They really do. And keep in mind, because we had a question too, about 4% of people that gamble will gamble out of, like, have a gambling disorder. And then about maybe, a little more than that, maybe 6% of people have problems with their gambling. So, I mean, most people can handle the gambling. It's just that 4% of people that can't. And that's what we really need them to know, that there is help and there's resources, because we want to make sure that, like, everybody knows that they can call us just as easily as they can call for substance misuse or mental health help.
Right.
I'm glad you said that, because we got a few seconds left. So I would love to be able to wrap up. If everyone just takes a few seconds, maybe give a little word of wisdom for some folks who may be struggling, and some contact information for you guys' organizations.
Absolutely. My last thing I'll say then is word of wisdom is, if you think you or somebody has a problem, have them reach out to 1-800-GAMBLER. And it's just a phone call. They can talk to somebody that's been there, somebody that's lived that experience, and have a conversation. Nobody, and myself or my other peers, aren't going to force somebody to do something they don't want to do. but we can let them know of some options and some help, and if they want to try something different.
And it's anonymous?
It's anonymous, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You can always call Sheppard Pratt at 410-938-4901 if you think that gambling may not be the problem, but what I do with gambling, the drinking, the excessive smoking, because it's a processed addiction. We just don't do one thing. So Sheppard Pratt is here to help on several different levels, because we do deal with children, we do deal with adults, and we do deal with that dual diagnosis.
And I would just say, talk to your children about the risk of gambling and pay attention to the games they're playing, video games, and make sure that they're appropriate and that you're talking to them about the risk of spending a lot of money.
We thank you all. AJ, Heather, Jim, thank you so much. Pork Chop, appreciate you always. Thank you for everyone that joined us tonight. We absolutely love the fact that you were with us. Please make sure that you love up on friends, pay attention, and once again, good night, good evening.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Jim.
Yes, sir.
Your story, man.
Yeah.
And
thank you so much for sharing, brother.
like
Appreciate it.
Uncle a little bit. We look like we're related. So
you know what? We probably are. You just never know.
From here on.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.